Welcome back, guys, to the Cousin
Connection
podcast.
podcast.
It's been a long week,
It's been a
and
month.
we'll definitely cover what's been going on. Actually, let me start with that. So last week we had my sister Aisha on.
I thought
Aisha
you're
on-
pointing to the.
Yeah, to the empty seat currently,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But she was on last week, and this was on a Sunday, and
No,
on
we recorded on Monday actually.
Was it Monday? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, it was on Monday. And a couple days before that is when Hamas entered Israel or occupied Palestine.
Allegedly attacked.
Yeah, allegedly. Let's say they did. For
Okay.
if we're going to
optics.
be as charitable as possible.
Okay, they attacked.
They
Israel.
attacked.
Was
No,
it
not
the
Israel. They attacked occupied Palestine because that area is technically and is Palestine. It's occupied by Israelis.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that happened, and by Monday, not a lot has happened. Like, there was talks of retaliation, and we knew, and I even prefaced this in the episode at one point. I was like, I know that there's going to be, or not preface, but I guessed that this would be the next recourse, would be like just full out war. And that's essentially what we got.
I mean, I wouldn't even call it war when it's one-sided.
Oh
fight.
yeah, it's not even a war.
Yeah.
It's a extermination, a genocide, whatever scenario we
Apartheid.
could work. Is basically they're going to try and destroy and kill as many civilians as possible. That's the current state at this moment, and a lot has happened that week. Like, first off, just the reactions overall. The one positive thing that I can say that came out of this week is that I've definitely seen a major shift in the general consensus around who the bad guys are. If you want to say, I don't know what the best word for that is, but like essentially at the beginning of the week, there were still a lot of people, especially if you watch a lot of celebrities' Instagram stories, there were a lot of people who were on the side of Israel. But now, as the week has gone on and a lot more people are opening their eyes to the real situation that's currently going on, there are a lot more people who are saying, okay, you know what, now that they are more aware of what's actually going on and what the real story is, a lot of people are saying, oh shoot, like I used to be pro-Israel, but now I'm pro-Palestinian. And that's definitely been the biggest shift I've seen throughout the week. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Honestly, I've had a lot of thoughts this week about the different things that I've seen. But if we're going to speak on that specifically,
Yeah.
I remember I spoke about this last week about how a lot of celebrities are either not posting about it or they're posting as if it is the Israelis that are being exterminated or, being brutally killed, innocent. I mean, listen, I don't know how many Israelis were killed. I think in general this week, many innocent lives have been taken away from them. That being said, on the topic of celebrities and influencers speaking up against what's been happening, there were a lot. Okay, my timeline, I feel like I've curated it to see what I want to see. And so for the most part, I think I maybe saw like one person post about a pro-Israel thing that I personally followed, because let's be real, I don't follow them anymore.
We've definitely we've definitely unfollowed a lot. I think we've both unfollowed a lot of people this week.
And that was the only person that I knew personally. That being said, there were some celebrities that I saw that made posts that were pro-Israel. And then there were some, I don't remember if they were influencers or like, I'll speak on one influencer specifically, but there were some that were like blatantly pro-Israel. And then there were some that were like, oh, the poor children of Israel and Palestine.
The neutral stance.
And it was just ironic to me because and this person's actually getting a lot of flack on TikTok too, but I don't know if you've heard of Nabila Noor.
No.
Okay, so she basically, her following, she has a pretty big following. A lot of her following, she's Bengali and she married a white guy.
Yeah.
So a lot of her identity is being in an interracial relationship and having mixed kids. But like a lot of like who she stands by is her Bengali identity. That being said, she posted about the neutral stance. And people were like very, very, very disappointed in her.
Yeah.
And right before all of this even started, she actually made a post counting down the days till Christmas. So the Muslims were already unhappy
Yeah.
because they're like, we don't see you counting down the days till Ramadan.
Yeah.
And just because you have a white husband who has non-Muslim, like he's Muslim,
Yeah.
but his family members are not.
Wait, if he's Muslim
He converted to
and
Islam.
she's Muslim,
Yeah.
what's
Why are they celebrating Christmas? Because
Yeah.
he grew up celebrating it. This is her justification,
Yeah.
not mine. But she said he grew up celebrating it, and it's really important to him
Mhm.
to carry on the tradition. And so
important enough to put a story out on it? I don't know.
she put out a whole TikTok dedicated to redecorating her home in preparation for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So she was already in hot water
Yeah.
for that.
That's a whole other thing, though.
Yeah, it's a whole other topic.
Mhm.
We'll talk about it another time. But then, like immediately after, a couple days later, she posted this neutral stance,
Mhm.
and people were like, "What are you doing?
Mhm.
Like you profit on the fact of being Bengali and Muslim.
Mhm.
Like you're not even an ally at this point. You're just taking."
Do you know
a
what the
neutral-
exact post was? Can we read it out? I don't know what it was. Was it on her story or was
No,
it?
it was a
an
post,
actual
like
post?
a dedicated post she
See
made.
if she still has it up.
The power of Google.
Okay, she
Okay.
found it. So let's see.
So this is what she put.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "My heart has been heavy these past few days as we've witnessed the aftermath of the horrific attacks in Israel. Violence against children is unbearable. Violence against innocent civilians is never acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Whether for resistance, defense, and everything in between, killing innocent civilians, kidnapping children, torturing women requires collective outrage. It has always required collective outrage. I hold a space in my heart for my Israeli, Jewish, Palestinian, and Muslim friends and followers navigating one of the most horrifying conflicts of our time in real time. This is a time for mourning and grief for so many people, and it's also a time for action. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that just as I have condemned the acts of heinous violence against Palestinians and Israelis in the past, I do the same today. The ongoing conflict, keyword, between Israel and Palestine has left tens of thousands of people dead over the last 7 decades and 7 million Palestinians as refugees, and it is children who are suffering the consequences the most. Hate has no home on my platform, and I will keep it that way moving forward. I am praying for peace, action, and a resolution."
See, so to a person who doesn't know about this situation, that would sound perfectly fine, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the problem, right? Like yes, you're condemning the violence and you're saying all the right things to basically appease to both sides. But that's the issue. When there's one side that is clearly in the wrong, they are clearly the oppressor. Why would you even try to ride the middle in that situation? You know what I mean? And the reason why she's getting so much backlash is because with influencers, a lot of them fear the backlash that they might get from those that sponsor them, those that have partnerships with them, those that basically pay their bills.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like if you're going to pick money over what's morally right and speaking up and educating your followers on the platform that they built for you, then at that point I would say that you're pretty spineless and you're just money hungry. So
yeah, like I think last week we mentioned the singer Nima.
Nemesis. Yeah.
But she actually got dropped by her label.
I saw that.
For posting about Palestine, which is kind of ironic because
she is Palestinian.
She's Palestinian.
As if she's not going to speak about her own. Like that makes no sense. Honestly, when I saw her post on that, I was like, they don't deserve you anyways. You're too good for them. Yeah.
And also just in that celebrity speaking out about it realm. So recently there's like this, do you know about DJ Vlad?
No, I don't.
Well, essentially he's like a figure in the hip hop community. He interviews a lot of like up and coming rappers.
Okay.
And he covers like basically like gossip within the rap community. And he profits off of like the black community and the negative things that currently go on or conflicts that go on in that community. And recently he went on to a radio station where he essentially called out DJ Khaled and Drake for not saying anything about the situation, right? But unfortunately, DJ Vlad's actually on the Israeli side. Like he's pro-Israeli, or Israel. And he's calling out Drake, being like, "You're one of the most biggest Jewish figureheads we have."
I always forget that Drake is Jewish. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, and he was like talking about how you had a bar mitzvah, all these things. But then people are calling him out. They're like, DJ Vlad, you have no right to tell first off, like a black man and an Arab man, what to say when you've never spoken about anything that's going on within the black community, which is the same community you currently profit off of. They're calling out the hypocrisy and how like the thing that he's profiting from, he doesn't care whether or not he like when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement, all that stuff, he didn't care about that. But when it came to his people, then he starts speaking out and calling out other people for it. So that was just an ironic thing or a weird thing that was going on within the like celebrity community as well.
I also want to say shout out to Kehlani.
Yeah, that too. She's definitely been on the forefront.
She has, and she's been like out there posting on her stories, calling out other influencers and celebrities for remaining silent during this time. Like
she said that celebrities were calling her and telling her, you shouldn't be speaking out about this. Do you not care? Like, you know, your label might look at you different after this and all this stuff. And she's like there are people literally dying. I don't care about money. Like, where's your humanity, basically? She literally said that to them.
You know, do you remember when Kanye made those comments and people were calling him an anti-Semite? Anti-Semite, is that
or anti-Semitic, sorry.
Anti-Semitic, yeah. Do you remember when he was saying, like...
the only thing I remember him saying is that he loved Hitler, but I don't remember. You don't remember that?
Okay, maybe I didn't pay attention to that portion, but he also did say, like, a lot of the big corporations are run by Jews, so, you know, people, that's why no one's ever going to speak up against anything that they do. I also do want to say, being Jewish does not equate to being a Zionist.
Yeah.
You know, I saw the protest in New York. Did you see that one? The really big protest in New York.
Even in Toronto, there have been plenty of protests where you see Jewish people also walking with the protesters or other Palestinian people. Like they're supporting.
Yeah, and so to clarify, like for those of you that are listening to us speak on this, we're not specifically talking about Jewish people. We're actually speaking about the Zionists, the Israeli government, the IDF, etc. So, it's just been like very eye-opening. But back to the original point that you made, where you said you felt like a lot of people are finally waking up to the truth and they're starting to realize what's actually going on.
Yeah.
I noticed that as well. And I noticed that people are now calling them out. Like the fact that whoever's running the Twitter page or the X page for Israel, I don't know if you saw that one photo where they had like blood smeared on a children's bedroom floor. And it was like, first of all, blood is not pink, like on the actual book, whatever picture book or whatever it was.
It was propaganda.
Yeah, and then someone was like, "I have a minor in forensics."
Yeah, I saw that. You saw that comment? Yeah.
If I can find it again, we'll post it here.
But essentially, he broke it down scientifically to show how this is all propaganda and completely fake.
And it's and then can we actually go back to the story that broke the news, saying that Hamas slaughtered 40 children or babies?
Yeah,
and that beheaded them. Sorry, and later on in the week it came out, it can't be confirmed because it was made up.
The source was, trust me, bro.
literally, like it's very sad what's happening. And you know how I said I had a lot of thoughts this week?
Yeah.
So partway through the week, like I was really feeling like, wow, this is a lot. Like this is really taking a toll on my mental health. Like maybe I should take a break. That's literally my thought process. But then I'm like, wow, the fact that I'm privileged enough to even be able to take a break,
be able to turn off your phone and act like it's not happening,
which is crazy because can the people in Palestine take a break? No, they're living it day in and day out, and I'm sure they wish they could take a break. You know what I mean? And so it was like this cycle of wanting to continue to educate myself and then, you know, use my minuscule platform to post about it and educate those that follow me.
Yeah.
But at the same, and then also, you know, making dua and just kind of like doing whatever I can from where I'm at. But then I would also feel like, okay, this is a lot. Like it's impacting my day to day. Like, let me just take a break. And then feeling the guilt from doing that. And it was just like this constant cycle the whole week. And it made me feel like helpless at one point. And then I started to see more and more posts about like, you know, people encouraging others to make dua and how like we're underestimating the power of dua, which actually...
And praying like istikhara and all that.
Not istikhara, but praying... no, the one when you wake up at the third of the night. What is it called again?
Now I'm forgetting.
You threw me off with istikhara. I was like,
I literally,
no.
I know it. But I
Tahajjud.
Okay.
I was like, I know what it was. And... you know, we've spoken about the power of dua before, and how, when you are inspired to make dua, it's because your Lord Allah wants to give to you whatever you're asking about. And so, that reflection was what I kind of went through today. Like I was thinking about it. I'm like, I can sit here and feel guilty and whatever, but that's not going to change the situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what we can do is make dua and wake up and in the third of the night and pray and make dua for them. And you know what I mean? Like all we can do, the power that we can do is you can donate to the reputable organizations.
Yeah, like Islamic Relief. And
exactly. That's a really big one. And then make dua for them as much as you can.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that when you're talking about like speaking out on social media, another thing that we've been seeing is the worst case scenario when it comes to the algorithm suppression, and even specifically to Canada, the Bill C-18. So to start with the first point I made, which is the algorithm. So because it kind of tries to suppress anything to do with just conflict or any world geopolitical news, everyone's stories are getting completely shadow banned. Or I think the word is shadow banned. So like people with thousands, even hundreds of thousands of followers are getting maybe 100, 200, 300 views on their stories when they're used to getting a minimum of 1,000, right?
Yeah.
And the second point I said, shoot.
You were saying...
Okay, let's go to the third point, which is Bill C-18. Okay, I completely forgot what the second point was.
Yeah, me too.
But the Bill C-18, so specifically to Canada, is that like because news agencies are essentially blocked in Canada, that includes the news agencies that show the real things that are going on in Palestine currently. So we don't get to see that. Fortunately,
I was just going to say, I thought it was my phone during the week.
Yeah.
There was this one page that I kept trying to load and it would always say no internet available, but any other page would load.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what's wrong with my phone? And so I would always watch like whoever's reposting that person. But I was like constantly checking that one page. I'm like, why doesn't it work? And then I noticed it's because they're being blocked, or Meta is conveniently making it so that we can't see that content.
Yeah. And there's actually someone I literally just saw a story or a TikTok, I think like 10 minutes ago, where a girl was like talking about this situation and she was trying to repost a story on her Instagram and it wasn't working. Like it would show the image, but it would be like loading. And then eventually when she did get some of them to post, it would be just a single frame of that video. And she's like, this is weird. So what she did is she went on her phone and went into a VPN. And when she opened her VPN and made it into like the middle of America, it worked perfectly fine. No issues at all.
That's so...
Yeah. And this is not from a news... She was reposting it from like TikTok. So it's not like she was trying to repost a news story from some like CNN or... Well, it's not CNN. They're not really giving the best news out here.
That's
but like
true.
Al Jazeera or something like that.
Yeah.
Then they noticed that it started working if they were in America. Yeah. So...
Yeah, and people's accounts are being suspended. Even on X/Twitter. Those two platforms specifically. I haven't heard anything about TikTok. But it's just very interesting that like, and here's when people try to call it a conflict or a war. How can you rightfully call it a war when Meta clearly favors one side over the other? Because I don't see no Israeli posts being shadow banned. I mean, YouTube is playing ads on children videos.
Yeah, you saw that too.
I saw that and I was like, what kind of yo?
They're like, your kids probably won't be able to understand this. So we'll just let you know there are 40 and they're still propagating that story saying that 40 babies were killed in the invasion, quote unquote invasion.
700 babies were killed in Palestine.
Yeah,
700 and the amount of children where like you can see the paramedics are literally carrying their lifeless bodies. I saw one where her head was literally open, and I was like traumatized just from seeing that. Like trigger warning to anybody that's listening to this, because we're going to be speaking very graphically. I probably should have said that in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
Oops. But it's hard not to be upset. It's hard not to be, extremely sad and then extremely angry and frustrated. And the fact that our government is sending money allegedly to also Palestine, but like some to Israel as well. Like, what are you doing? You're just for adding more fuel to the fire. All these Palestinians that are being killed, it's at the hand of the American government, the Canadian government, all the governments in Europe, like every single country there. Like, there are so many war crimes being committed that I wish we could hold everybody accountable.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing about Palestine in general is that, like, there's so much global interest in this singular location, mainly from the West, because there's that video also being propagated where Joe Biden, ironically, who's the president now, back in like 1986, is talking about how they can't afford to lose Israel. They need to they have to keep, no matter how much it costs to keep Israel as an ally, they must pay it. He was talking about like $3 billion every year to pay them, because that essentially gives them some footing in the Arabian Peninsula. So as long as they have Israel as an ally, then they can keep an eye on the rest of the Arabian Peninsula. And there was also that other video that came out. We're just kind of collating everything now, of like Netanyahu, who was talking about how he's aware of this and is leveraging that. He knows that they need him. So they will do whatever that's why they're able to bomb as many and kill as many civilians without any recourse, because they know that the Western countries need them. So they're not going to do anything, no matter how many Geneva Convention rules or whatever or laws they're breaking, or like how many times the UN condemns them for what they're doing. They're going to continue doing it because they know at the end of the day there's going to be no recourse for it. We also have to make sure, because of these global interests, you have to also address the fact that there are multiple countries that surround Palestine that are currently not doing anything and actually maybe even aiding Israel's current attacks on the Palestinian people, right? Like specifically Egypt. Egypt keeps an eye on the Palestinians. Like they mentioned that they actually warned them a few days before the attack that Egypt did, that there was going to be some type of action taken by Hamas at some point, and they didn't know exactly when, but they were like, hey, keep an eye out. And now it's not confirmed, but people are saying, like, they probably knew about this and allowed it to happen, because at the end of the day, even the Israeli government doesn't care about their own civilians. At least they just care about their own political interests and how much power they can grab. So they knew this was going to happen, and essentially what's being implied is that they would use this as an excuse to go into Gaza and take over that land. I don't
know if you saw those posts, I think from someone's Facebook, about like rebuilding, using the Palestinian land to rebuild whatever, some kind of city.
Yeah, but those are just the fact that people fantasizing about killing millions of civilians is messed up on another level. And these are like Jims and Bobs and Karens. Like, they're like, you think they would be regular people. It makes you realize how like people can be manipulated into seeing other people as less than human.
But they've been doing
in the modern day.
They've been doing that.
No, but it happens even in the modern day, where it's very clear. You can make even a single Google search or check one story here and there and see what the real story is. But people will, for some reason, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, continue to stick with one side of the story and not give any thought towards whatever other side of the story there is. And as I was mentioning, like, Egypt is supporting them, but I searched it up, and a lot of the quote-unquote Muslim countries are actually allied, or at least have peace treaties with Israel. Yeah, and give them a legitimate claim to the land. Like I was searching up like basically all of the United Emirates, Morocco, Sudan, Egypt, of course, and Jordan. Like all these countries, the reason that they're not jumping because they are not allied with them, but at least they have a peace treaty with them. And I know you can say, oh, they're just looking out for their best interest for their own country. But at the end, when you're seeing this happening, like there must be, if you know that there's going to be no recourse from the Western government, like how do you not feel like you have to do something, aid them in some way, right?
It's unfortunate. Like you would think that the Muslim rulers of the Muslim countries would at least come together. I'm sure if they came together, and hey, the UAE and a lot of the like Gulf countries are very very wealthy. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mention the biggest one, Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
which actually they said that was going to be making a deal with the Israeli government before this attack occurred.
And the Hamas thing was supposed to stop it from going through, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure if all of the Muslim countries came together and basically defended Palestine, I'm sure they have enough wealth and resources. I don't really know too much about their military and their defense, how that works, but I'm sure if they have enough wealth, they can formulate a pretty good defense team against Israel. But if Israel is backed by, you know, the global powerhouse, which is
you're
US,
essentially talking about a world war.
A world war, yeah. And like, I'm not encouraging, you know, none of like, all I'm saying is that they literally have nobody, while Israel has like strong countries allying them. You know what I mean? And so it's very unfair, very unfortunate, and it angers me when people try to call it a war, because a war means you have two countries that actually are fighting each other. The Palestinians aren't even fighting back. They can't fight back. You're claiming to fight against Hamas and bombing every single corner of whatever is left of Palestine to try and get them. How does that make sense?
It doesn't.
Imagine you see a spider in the corner of one bedroom and you burn your whole house down. I mean, I would do that, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Like, the point I'm trying to get at is like, and you know what? You know what? Can I just say, because this is my little like thought. I was like, how did Hamas allegedly attack and catch the Israeli military off guard when they have a freaking Iron Dome and all this high tech?
We spoke about that, right? Like, it might have been intentional, because the Iron Dome is for missiles.
Yeah.
But them getting through the border and stuff.
Yeah, like, how does that even happen?
Well, that's where the conspiracy is that this was actually known to be happening by the Israeli government, and they chose not to do anything
to justify what they're doing now.
Yeah, to justify what they're doing now, because no matter what, like, Israel's final goal is to get all of Palestine, or at least the Israeli government. Their goal is to get the whole country. Like, that includes Gaza right now, or Gaza, but they're going to be making their way through the West Bank eventually. And they already have control of the West Bank. Like, they have all the checkpoints. Like, people there are already living under an apartheid government. But I think their first goal is to take over all of Gaza and that whole area.
It's just, I don't really have any more words, because I just feel like I feel myself getting angrier and angrier. And so I'm just going to leave it up to Allah. At the end of the day, these people will be held accountable.
Yeah.
So, like,
and yeah, any stories you hear, at least coming out from the Israeli government, first just assume that they're not real.
If it's coming directly from the Israeli government, the pages or Instagram pages, whatever, dedicated to that, don't believe it. If it's coming from CNN or any American funded news broadcasting network, don't believe it.
Yeah.
You really have to, as difficult as it is to consume this type of content, you really have to look at, there are actually a couple of pages that, you know, I've been following, and I can list them in the description of this video so that you guys can also follow. I'm sure a lot of you guys that are listening are very well aware of what's going on, and you probably are oh my gosh, I can't even speak. You probably are already following these pages, but for those that are not, I will have them listed just so that you are able to see for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like she mentioned, just continue to make dua, pray for the people of Palestine. I know we mentioned it last week, but we just want to give a good update, I guess, on what's been going on there, because it's definitely changed a lot in the last week, and it could change a lot in the next week.
Yeah.
Right? Like, right now, I could go more into what's going on. I don't know. I feel like at this point, you're kind of just like, you're gassed out.
I'll listen. You can share.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the next thing that was happening, I think we went through like the quote unquote attack. Even that's controversial to say that like this was a not really attack. Like this is all kind of planned out, but that's a whole conspiracy. You know, maybe when hindsight is 2020, after the situation, hopefully, inshallah, gets better and it's resolved, we can get the real facts of what was happening, and everybody can really see how much propaganda was being put out there. But to get back to what's going on now, so the Israeli government the military immediately started retaliating by just throwing rockets into Gaza, like indiscriminately. We're actually in the process of them bombarding the area. They're basically like, hey, so I know you have like 1.1 million people in this general area in northern Gaza, but like, can y'all kind of just evacuate down to south, the southern part of that region? And they're like, yeah, so you have about 24 hours to do this. For 1.1 million people, they give them 24 hours to evacuate, which is like unprecedented. Like the logistics of that, like you're thinking, how about all the people who are currently injured, the thousands of people who are currently injured, all the medical staff that's there, like how do they get all their supplies down south? Which, first off, they also cut off the water, they cut off the electricity, and they cut off the fuel to the country. The fact that they even had the ability to do that for a whole country is mind-blowing. They did all of that and then told them to evacuate. But then, in the process of some of them at least trying to evacuate, they started attacking the civilians who were evacuating.
The direction
and killing.
that they were.
Yeah. Like, let's say there's a road that all these people, there's only one road these people can go through.
They suggested, take this route, it's safer.
And then they bombed the route.
It was a trap.
Yeah, it was literally a trap.
And please tell me, how can you justify that?
There's no way of justifying it. And like, I've literally seen TikTokers like cry and be like, this is like, how is this going on? Like at first, a lot of these TikTokers, you can even see like the progression of a lot of these TikTokers who don't really have any investment in it. Like they're not Muslim, Christian, or like they don't have any connection to Palestinian people in any way, but they usually just cover stories like this, and you can even see the progression of them slowly breaking down as they're covering the story, to the point where one of them ended up like just sobbing on camera talking about this story where people were being bombed on the road, civilians, and then this video of it happening. So if you're still on one side of this thing, you're definitely like, you're not mentally okay at this point. Like there definitely has to be some type of mental block.
But we know, Amir, we know that there are some people in this world who are they're just blind to the truth. There has been a veil put over their eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what's that one saying? It's not the eyes that can see, it's the heart, something like that.
I'm going to believe you and say that. Yeah. I know what you're talking about generally,
there was a saying like that, but you know what I mean? Like if there was a veil put over your eyes and you're not meant to see the truth, you're never going to see the truth, you know? So as angering as it is, like the only thing that gives me some sort of comfort, not even comfort, but like just ease, I guess, to my mind, is just knowing that this life is temporary. This life is temporary. Those that are, you know, a lot of them are martyrs because of how they've been murdered. Half of the Palestinian population are children who automatically will go to Jannah because they're not even accountable yet. I've seen videos of paramedics trying to save a newborn. There was like a 3-week-old baby or a 3-month-old or something like that, and I was just like, I feel like I'm gonna go crazy trying to make sense of like how they could do this.
Those are things you're not supposed to rationalize. Like you're supposed to accept it as how horrible it is. Don't try and rationalize it.
No, it's not even about rationalizing it, but it's just like human beings, like you have to be really, really, really programmed to be evil in order to actually carry through with those acts. And then I'm sure so many of you guys have seen that one video of that ex-IDF soldier who talks about the traumatic effects, like what happened to him, like the PTSD that he experiences. And I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for people like that. No one forced you to be in that. I'm sure the government probably put some sort of pressure, and it's like either you're with us or against us type of thing. And I also saw videos where they're giving settlers now machine guns and just saying like, hey, make it rain. And they're just killing random people. Like,
and never feel bad. Okay, and this is controversial,
mm.
but so a lot of these settlers, first off, these settlers, they know what they're doing by moving into these areas. There's that video that came out of the guy from New Jersey, who literally like was living in a room that was part of like that was taken from a Palestinian family, while the Palestinian family is still living in that house. And then as they're interviewing him, he's like, hey, if I'm not here, someone else would just do the same thing, right? And then he's like, he's essentially like, eventually, hopefully this whole house, he said, hopefully this whole house is going to be a Jewish home. Like he's preying on the fact that these people eventually will be kicked out of their own home. And he acknowledges that this is their home, right? And and this is the mindset of a lot of these settlers, to the point where because they're so close to the Gaza Strip, they have an area where they I think it's literally called like the watching area, or like I forget what the name, they have a name for it, where they all take their chairs, like camping chairs and stuff, they sit on there and they watch as bombs are being thrown, shot into Gaza. So these people go there and they watch like popcorn. They're literally eating it and like sitting, like having a little picnic as they're watching this. And this is their entertainment. So these are the same people that they're trying to say they're innocent civilians. Of course, the fact that they're putting their own children and their wives and their family members in this line of fire, like intentionally doing this, it's this almost equivalent to what they're saying that Hamas is doing by putting civilians in the line of fire. The Israeli government is not any better. They're doing the same thing with their own people. Just these people are kind of intentionally doing because of the circumstance. A lot of these settlers, a lot of these settlers, I can't even say that word, settlers, they come into this area, or they are willing to accept living in these areas because the places they come from, a lot of them are running from tax evasion, from crimes they've committed in other countries, or from some like something they've done in another country. They're like, hey, it's better for me to live here and take someone's home.
Yeah, they have
like,
a soldier protecting them.
Yeah, you have soldiers protecting you.
You're literally being given someone else's land and property.
And they know they're being like they're taking someone else's land. It's not like they're oblivious to the fact that they're currently living. They probably, some of the equipment that those people are using literally a day before, they move into that house and start using it. They know that people used to live here. They're not oblivious to the situation.
How ironic, like it's ironic that this is even happening because for the longest time, you know, we're taught in school about the Holocaust and how disgusting that whole thing was, and how people vowed that this will never happen again in humanity. This is basically the 2.0. Yeah. Except the oppressed at that time is now the oppressor. Yeah. It's very sad. It's very, very, and the audacity of these settlers to like think, oh well, it's my right for me to take this person's house. This ain't your country, bro. It really is. Like, I don't understand. Like,
and this is something just to give you the not eagle view, like the
bird's
eye view of this whole situation, or like even just a broader view of this. Like right now, it's horrible to us that this is happening. But this is just history repeating itself.
100%.
Colonization is not something new. This is something that has been happening over thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years.
America.
Yeah.
Shit, we are on stolen land too.
Yeah. I think it's just surprising that it's currently still happening when we have all this evidence and clear as day, like sources, or not sources, but like, yeah, clear as day evidence that like this is happening to these people. Even though the propaganda is saying a different thing, right? But I don't know. It's a crazy situation we find ourselves in, and again, inshallah, things get better for the Palestinian people, and with more people being aware of the situation, at least put pressure on the politicians who are currently supporting it, and start changing their tune.
There's always a chance will help,
especially if you rely on Allah. What?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I do think the protests may help, though, because I feel like, you know, when the whole Black Lives Matter movement really kind of like picked up during COVID. Yeah. And the protests were happening, and I feel like it actually kind of made somewhat of a change in many industries. part of me, like, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, like, oh yeah, you know, people are actually embracing and really learning and educating themselves. But also, like, are they doing it because you know, it's more favorable for them to do it? Affirmative action is benefiting, you know, whatever industry, because it's like, oh look, they're being inclusive.
Yeah.
Whatever industry it's part of. But like here in this situation with the Palestinians and the Israelis, is it beneficial for people to now start, like, not people, sorry, the governments of the world, the presidents and whatever of the world? I feel like at the end of the day, there can be a million protests going on, but unless it's of benefit to them, they won't actually do anything about it, unfortunately.
No matter how this situation turns out, like, we have to rely on Allah and say, like, okay, this is what is willed to happen, and inshallah, like, at the end of the day, there will be justice. Justice will be served eventually. If not in this life, in the next life.
100%.
So yeah, we're going to leave it at that. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, I'm going to need a break because...
Yeah, and we're going to come back with maybe a few things that are lighter to, you know, ease the mind a little bit, especially for those who have been hearing about this all week. But yeah, we'll be back in just a second. And we're back, y'all. And I know I said I'll probably be talking about something a little bit lighter, but there was actually another situation which unfortunately got kind of rolled over, or like didn't get as much attention or overshadowed by the current situation in Palestine. But we also have to pray for the people in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. The earthquakes that are happening.
Yeah, and multiple earthquakes. It started off with one, which, you know, thousands of people unfortunately lost their lives from it. But there was a second one which made things worse. And this seems to be a theme with, and it's a known thing to happen with earthquakes. Like, there's usually one major earthquake, and then there are like reverberations or like aftershocks that can be almost not equivalent to it, but almost as bad as the first one. And that's what we saw happen in Afghanistan, where basically there was an initial earthquake that devastated the country, and then a second one occurred not long after. So we have to make sure to pray for the people in Afghanistan as well.
I mean, Muslims, you know, but like, you know, one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is the increase in earthquakes, and there have actually been a lot in the last like month or so. And so, yes, pray for the people of Afghanistan, but also take this time to really strengthen your iman and work on your relationship with Allah, work on your deen. If you're not already praying, make sure you start praying, make sure you repent. Like, really, now is your time to like buckle down, because the world as we know it is changing every single day, and you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. So
yeah, especially with everything going on right now, like, exactly, things are changing day by day.
100%. And this is not to scare you, but it's like, at the end of the day, you know, we have to remind each other and remind ourselves, and we're trying to keep each other in check, you know what I mean, and keep ourselves in check. And so, like, the signs are very blatant and like in our faces, where we've been warned by our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know what I mean, 1400 years ago, and back then he was telling us about the signs that we're seeing now. Like, I remember learning about this as a child, not knowing that I would even be living through it, and we're like living through it now. So, you know, do what you can, really work hard on becoming a better Muslim, and you know what I mean, just hold tight. I don't know. There's not much more you can say, right? Because like, you feel, like you mentioned earlier, you feel helpless in the situation. So at the end of the day, you always have to just turn back to Allah and be like, okay, you know, we trust in your will and your judgment, so everything will work out as you willed it to be. Another story I want to talk about, let's get on a little bit of a lighter thing. I don't know if you heard about the Hasan Minhaj, is that how you say it? Yeah. Minhaj. Yeah. Hasan Minhaj. Let's say it as as fobby as possible. What if that's not the way that you say it?
Let's say it is. Okay. But so apparently we were lied to.
Why?
So you know how we went to his comedic show? Yeah. Like I think it was last year. Was it last year or this year?
It was last.
It feels like it was last year. Yeah. But we went to his show, and he basically, like, you know, he told his, like, what's been going on in his life the past few years, how he was having a hard time making
His wife was having
his
a
wife
hard time.
have a hard time getting pregnant, and he found out it was his fault. And then there's this whole story about how someone sent anthrax to his house, and he got on his, and well, he thought it was anthrax, and he got on his daughter, and that turns out it was all fake.
How do you know?
Because so New York, I think it was the New Yorker or one of the New York publications came out with a story on him, where they were firstly they were just doing it on him to, like, you know, interview Hasan Minhaj. But of course, whenever he tells them a story, they have to fact check it, right?
Yeah.
Like a normal journalist would.
Right.
And as they were doing that, they found out this story isn't real. And then they started like checking other stories. And there was another story he talked about where he was rejected by a girl that he asked out to prom because his family said he was brown and like they were racist. Turns out that story was fake. And it turns out that the girl that rejected him ended up marrying an Indian man. And then, like, even the story of the cop who...
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the cop who was acting like a new convert to Islam, and like...
The undercover cop.
Yeah, the undercover cop, and he came in and they called him out for it and everything, and in basketball court and all that. Turns out that story was, like, made up as well.
But
so
does he claim for these stories to actually be factual, or does he claim like
he's a
storyteller?
It's implied that these stories are true. Like, you don't make up a story about your daughter getting anthrax poured on, or accidentally getting anthrax on her and then taking her to the hospital and all these things. Like, the thing about comedy is that usually a lot of their stories have some truth to them, but they like embellish it or they exaggerate it in some way.
Yeah.
But they never really make up a story.
Like the whole scenario was made up?
Scenario was made up.
That's kind of weird.
But then it's also added on top of that. It's the fact that these stories, he's using them to gain some type of sympathy for a general struggle that him or his community goes through. So like when it comes to the story of the prom girl or the girl that he asked to prom who's white, her parents are white, and he implied that they were racist for this. And that girl, because it came out who that girl was, ended up getting a lot of like backlash for it, right? She got a lot of like negative attention from it. Her parents got a lot of negative attention from it. Everybody thought they were racist, even though she's currently with an Indian man. And she came out saying like, yeah, like he almost ruined my life essentially.
Oh my God.
And
that's not okay.
Exactly. And when Hasan Minhaj was like asked about it, he's like, you know, I didn't expect people to think that it was all true. Like, he had no real...
He wasn't apologetic
about it at all. So he was like, yeah, this is just, you know, part of the game kind of thing.
Best believe his next special is going to include this.
He's currently on tour with another special. I think he's already gone on stage a few times with it.
Oh,
but he's currently filming one. Yeah. He's doing a tour.
He's switching up his routine and writing about, the one time I almost got canceled.
I think he's going to continue doing, because like it makes his money. Is like, I don't think his core fan base really cares whether or not the stories are real or fake. They're going to kind of just like be like, oh, you know, I like the stories. They're funny. Right? So that was...
but it impacts his authenticity though.
Yeah, but
at the end of the day, like, you know, when you're watching or listening to comedians, like if you truly believe that every single thing they're telling you is absolutely fact, no one's life is that funny and that entertaining.
But it's not about whether or not it's real or fake. Like, he can make up a random story about like something that happened to him on, I don't know, the subway, or I don't know, just a random situation. But when you're telling that story to gain some type of sympathy, or trying to use it as an example of the racism that his community goes through, that's when it becomes an issue, right?
Yeah, it's kind of
because the whole like boy cried wolf situation where you're saying, okay, like,
it's like
what?
What's that one guy's name from that singing show?
Oh, Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, Smollett.
Juicy. No, because I'm thinking, Dave Chappelle called him Juicy, and now I can't think of his real name. Jesse? Yeah, Jussie Smollett. Yeah, him. So that was a whole other fake story too, right? And he did that.
Or what about the other one?
What?
That girl. I forgot what her name was, but she said that she was kidnapped and jumped, and then she was fine the whole time. Oh
yeah, exactly. She's like, I see a baby on the highway. Yeah. That was a weird story too. And she came out like 2 days later.
Lie about that? Like,
you know, people like the attention on them,
Okay,
right?
do something else. You don't have to make up some kind of traumatic story. Like,
it's unfortunate that they try to like weaponize their race or like some type of like aspect of themselves that they know will gain sympathy from the rest of the community or from the rest of the world.
That's crazy.
To gain some type of attention and just make up stories like that.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So it happens more often than you think, but it's just crazy how it's happening with someone who's been seen in such a positive light. Like I've never seen anyone speak bad about Hasan Minhaj. Like he's been pretty positively like seen.
His reputation.
Yeah, he has a pretty good reputation. Like to the point where they're thinking of him, or people were trying to get him to become the next host of The Daily Show, which is the one that Trevor Noah recently vacated, I guess.
Yeah.
But now that those talks are kind of like out now. Like the fact that I don't think anyone's gonna be willing to accept him as a host. Yeah. After that happening, he kind of ruined his chances in that. So there's this big thing. It's in a lot of, especially in the Muslim community, like in general, in like the pop culture, there's been this like rise in like quote unquote like devil worship, or like people who are using the devil or devilish like symbolism to promote their music. And this was like a big thing that recently came out with Doja Cat, who was essentially dressed up as a devil, and like almost antagonizing her own fan base. Like she was making fun of her fan base, saying, "Oh, you guys like, why you guys even like my old music? I made that stuff as a cash grab. I did it because I knew that it would be popular, like not because like it's artistically well done in any way." Or she, you know how like a lot of celebrities, they have like cute names for their fans. I think hers were like kittens or something like that. And she's like, anyone who calls himself a kitten is not my fan. So she was saying some crazy stuff like that. And this is all to promote her new album that was coming out.
Yeah.
And people were saying, oh, you're going to lose all your fans. Like everything you're doing now. She's losing millions of followers. Turns out she comes out with a song called Paint the Town Red. Guess what? It's number 1 in the country. No, and I think it's still number 1 in the country, which shows that like there's all this talk about how this is like never negatively gonna affect your perception and your fan base and like your popularity, but all it did was give her more of a spotlight and made her even more popular.
I think it, like the whole devil symbolism and all that kind of stuff impacts religious people regardless of what faith they belong to.
Yeah.
For those that aren't really like, you know, because there were two sides of the spectrum. There were some that were like, oh, I ain't messing with that. I'm not going to listen to her, whatever, boycotting her, no longer supporting her. But then there were some that were like, oh, it's just a song. It doesn't actually represent the devil or anything like that. Listen, at the end of the day, we all know the music industry is pretty dark. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We've heard like tidbits of things from like Kesha, for example, and the things that happen behind the scenes and what you're kind of forced or pushed into doing in order to be like on top. You know what I mean? In terms of like the symbolism itself, I remember maybe like 11, 12 years ago when Rihanna was like starting to become bigger, and if you remember, that was almost like the rise of like the conspiracy of the Illuminati was like rampant on YouTube, because that was before TikTok was like a thing, right? So like there would be all these like 12-part like documentaries on the Illuminati and like breaking down the process of like making artists successful. So like wearing red outfits, having the checkered floor, having certain things, like whatever. I don't remember all the details, but I think over the years people started to become more and more like in tune with like, okay, like this is an Illuminati ceremony or whatever it's called, initiation or whatever it's called, right? And I think Doja Cat, whether it's her marketing team or her PR team or whatever, or her herself, probably know that she can play into this and gain the views, because we all know when it comes to being a celebrity, all press is good press. Whether you're hated on, people are still going to be looking you up and checking out your music, even if you know, people think you're the devil worshiper, and she could be. Allahu alam, I don't know. May Allah protect us from that. But I'm just saying, like, she or her team probably knew that playing into this would get her to number one, and it worked. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, she did what she had to do, and if you want to call her a sellout, she's a sellout. And the only thing I didn't like, though, I mean, I didn't like a lot of it, any of it really, but why attack your fans? Like, those are the people that support you. And I know it's all part of the whole, like, the act. So is she nicer to them now? Because she was, like, pretty rude at one point. I don't know. I don't follow her, so I don't know what she's up to.
I'm going to have a kind of weird take here. Or not a weird take, a controversial take, okay? I'm going to say the people who are most upfront with all this, like, devil symbolism and, like, all these, like, very, like, dark symbolism in general.
Like Sam Smith, too.
Yeah. I feel like those people are the furthest from that.
I thought that.
No, okay. You know what? I feel like those people are furthest from it, and they're kind of like, they're doing it intentionally because they know there's these conspiracies out there, and they're kind of trolling in a way. They're playing into it. They're being a troll. Because first off, Doja Cat is known to be a huge troll. She does that stuff on purpose. She doesn't technically mean it a lot of times. She's doing it because she's trolling, and that's just how she grew up. That's her style of humor. But the reason I feel like a lot of them, the people who are more blatant about it, are the furthest from it, or like really just do it because it's eye catching and it creates a conversation, is because the people who are less upfront with it and are more like wholesome, I guess, are usually are the ones that you find out are like into the worst things. Like, how many stories have you, like the Will and Jada situation recently? Like, you find out people thought these people were like the most wholesome couple in the world. Everyone idolized them to be like that's what I want, you know.
Couple goals.
Even J. Cole himself fell into it. He said, you know, what did he say? That
Will and Jada. I want that Will and Jada level.
Yeah,
I don't.
But
thank you.
Well, like, initially, you didn't know about this. If you didn't know about this, you would have probably still wanted that, right? But now it came out that they were divorced for like, or not divorced, but separated for like
6 or 7 years.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years.
And can you believe
what?
She was shocked and surprised that he defended her. The slap. The infamous slap.
Exactly.
I was like, damn.
And
she's getting every chance she can to embarrass that poor man.
Yeah. And then also you find out all these Disney stars who are the most wholesome people on TV and in movies are in the background doing drugs and like getting into the most first hardcore drugs and like weird like stuff. I was about to say a word there, but stuff that they're getting into in the background. But on TV and in movies, they look like they're the most, or music, they're the most wholesome people out there. So that's why I kind of thought, like, you know, usually a lot of people who are doing a lot of this, like, weird symbolism, like devil symbolism, turn out to be like the nicest people. And like there's nothing, and it's almost like it's so all out there that like there's their closet isn't as full as the other people who are trying to put up this front like they're this super goody two shoes, like, you know, bring you home to your mama kind of person. and then those people are kind of like the ones that you might see like supporting, you know, go back to the original story, like supporting like Israel and all those things, right? The people who seem to be the most positive lights out there, because it works in Israel's favor to have the people who are seen in the most positive light in society to be supporting them. But you won't really see like them looking to Doja Cat or like who else, like Lil Nas X, or like who else, Sam Smith, for those kind of
I can't think of anyone
endorsements
else.
Right? They always go to the people who have the best image. But then you find out those people are like the ones who used to go to like Epstein's Island and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, the people who are more upfront about it, I feel like are almost 100% doing it not because they truly believe in all that like devil worshipping stuff. It's because they're doing it for because they know it's controversial, and it's almost like to troll their audience or to troll the more non-secular audiences. Or
they just don't care anymore and they'd rather just wave it in our faces.
No, I don't. Okay, you say I don't believe that.
That's the stance I'm going to take, because I think before, you can't just listen. they've been conditioning us for years and years and years. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just come out there and then tell people that you're a devil worshiper. You gotta like slowly introduce people to it. You know what I mean? And so by these little like symbolism, like only if you, it's like if you know, like.
But, okay, now tell me, what's the benefit of them doing that?
Either way, they're still being controlled by,
but,
whoever it is.
How does the devil work? Do they work by out front just telling you straight up?
No, it's whispers. It's little things. They can't just come out in the open, right? Like, it's sort of like, think of it this way. Over the year, like the whole thought of the Illuminati was like slowly fed to us. You know what I mean? Like through conspiracy videos, it was always talked.
The Illuminati, I don't believe is what people currently believe it is.
I'm sure the perception of them is probably skewed from what it actually is. We don't really know because we're not part of it, right? But over the years, it's like more and more people became like they would be able to pick up on things. I don't
think the Illuminati has anything to do with the entertainment industry, music wise.
I beg to differ.
Because it's too obvious to say, oh, these squares. I don't think any of that. All that stuff is just for popcorn fun. It's like, oh, it's cool and nice to listen to, but I don't actually believe any of that stuff is real.
Yeah, maybe not, but I still think that the Illuminati exists.
It exists, but it exists in...
But they have control over other things. Maybe not the music videos and whatever. Like, that might all be like just child's play. But there are other things that are going on behind the scenes. And I think that playing into and making it more obvious now, like, yeah, you may think that like Doja Cat is so far removed from it, she's just playing into it because she's a troll, or same thing with Lil Nas X or whoever else. I still think they may not be part of it, but they like. I just think it's in our faces for a reason. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Personally, I don't mess with that.
But
like I see what you're saying, and I can understand why you think that way. But I think that they've just prepared us over time. It's sort of like, for example...
Prepared us for what?
You want me to be like...
Tell me what they're preparing us for.
Okay, let me give you an example, okay?
Yeah.
Do you remember that one show on Netflix, that one series? It was called The Messiah.
Yeah.
And basically it's like, if you watch it, there's a lot of parallels with like what's going to happen when Dajjal comes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like sort of... It's kind of like, for example, it's like not preparing people, but like kind of foreshadowing. Like,
first off, then it would be in the opposite direction completely.
What do you mean?
Why would they be showing devil symbolism and all these things when the false Messiah, the story of the false Messiah, is someone who's seen to be a positive light, who's done like positive miracles towards people? Because
unless you've learned from the lens of Islam, other people who are watching are like, wow, this is really cool. And then when he actually comes and is doing that, it's like, oh my God, I watched this show once upon a time, the same way that they're doing with like Simpson episodes. Oh my God, it foreshadowed the future. And now they're watching this because they don't know. If you don't know, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
They're watching this. And then when it actually happens and it's part of reality, they might fall for it and believe it. Or if they learn about it and know how to protect themselves, and they'll protect themselves.
Yeah, but that doesn't speak to anything that I was addressing, pointing out, which is like the
You're
devil
saying,
symbolism,
what are they
symbolism.
It's
how is that preparing you for something that's supposed to be more seen in a positive light? Technically, that would actually scare people away.
They're just not hiding anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. Like they've hid for so long, and
but all that stuff is to do with the devil. And people believe that's trying to move people towards like more of a devil worshipping sense of not being, but like a culture, or like that's as a society that's driven towards more of like just doing whatever you desire to do.
This episode is taking a weird.
So technically, the devil would want to work people more to. I know we're getting very kind of deep here, but like they would want people to go more towards a less secular route.
Okay,
because you're
I know what I want to say now.
Okay, go ahead.
It's like, you know, when you have kids and you're like, you can't have your cookie, you can't have this cookie. That just makes them want it more. So it's like, for people that are more on the secular route, they're more religious, and you're like, oh, you can't listen to the song because she's dressed like the devil, they're gonna be like, I just want to like hear it. Like, what does it sound like? Curiosity. Yeah. Curiosity killed the cat for a reason. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like what's the word? When you basically want someone to do something, so you tell them to do the opposite. What's that called again? Reverse psychology.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is.
But then again, the content of what, like, if we go back to Doja Cat, the content of what was in that popular song "Paint the Town Red" is literally just her talking about like not listening to what other people say and like being herself. Why are you just nodding?
You gotta read between the lines. You have to read
like,
between the
sure,
lines.
There's a lot of like crazy symbolism in there, but that doesn't mean what she's into.
What does Islam teach us? You have to fight against your nafs, fight against your lower self.
I'm not really taking part in a lot of that stuff anyway.
I know, but I'm saying, do you see the contrast? It's not parallel. Yeah. The contrast between what Islam teaches you and what her song is preaching.
Yeah. So you can say that it's trying to teach people to be more secular and just live towards their desires, but then that goes against what you think that the Illuminati is preparing us for, right? Or maybe they do work together. I'm just not putting the pieces together yet. So I'll need to think about it more. I feel like
we're going to do a deep dive of research after we're done recording this episode.
Oh shit, we have been going on for a while. So that was just an interesting thing.
Either way, the moral of the story is I don't mess with none of that stuff.
I know, I don't mess with it. I find it interesting though sometimes, but like I don't mess with it either, but like,
don't get me wrong. Sometimes I'm like there doing a deep dive and just like watching.
I like to understand. Which is why I like to understand why they do these things.
Nah, sometimes I'm good.
What?
I'm good. Because then I get paranoid and then I'm just like, can I?
A lot of times it's not as deep as you think it is, but go ahead.
No, but don't you remember we like shared those videos back in YouTube like 10, 12 years ago?
What?
The whole Illuminati documentary on YouTube. Do you remember that one video?
Yeah, but that was more like popcorn stuff to me, man.
But I watched it.
Yeah.
And when I remember they specifically spoke about that one Rihanna song, Disturbia.
Yeah.
And I'm not even joking.
And they like broke down the lyrics. And
they read the lyrics, everything, okay? And then like that week, I remember, I think I was like in high school.
Yeah.
And I was taking the bus to school. And I heard it on someone's headphones. I'm like, oh my God, they're everywhere.
That song did kind of like, I didn't like hearing it because it made me just feel uneasy in general.
Right. And so like I was paranoid because every time I heard that song I was like, oh my God, here it is again. Like it made me feel uneasy. The music video was scary. Like I just didn't like it. But it was just like the fact that I just watched this documentary like late at night too. I would stay up until like 2 a.m. watching this video, and then I heard it on the bus the next day like through someone's headphones. I was just like paranoid.
Yeah, but then you realize this is all very like American centric. Like
it is.
I know they kind of distribute this to the rest of the world, but like when you go to the rest of the world, like people aren't listening to these things.
Yeah, they're
the same things. If you go to a French country, they're not really listening to Americans as much.
Actually, you'd be surprised. When I was in Paris, and I was walking down the street, someone was listening to trap music. I'm like, do you even understand?
But it could have been French trap music.
No, it was English.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so I don't know. It's a lot of conspiracies that I don't really buy into a lot of the times. I think it's just, society being itself, trying to just do whatever they want and going against because a lot of these people do come from like religious families, or they come from and they're kind of rebelling against that. So I feel like a lot of this might be just a form of rebellion. I try and rationalize it in some way where I try not to fall into this conspiracy mind, because there are certain things that are pretty obvious, like what's going on in Israel or Palestine, and occupied Palestine. Like a lot of that it was a conspiracy for a long time, or at least to a lot of people it seemed like it was a conspiracy, but like now it's very blatant what's going on there. Or you have things like the Epstein Island, where they had like underage people going to the island, and you had all these like top officials from multiple countries, majority being from America, who are going to these islands. So those things has more basis in that whole Illuminati conspiracy instead of all this like other entertainment stuff. But I'm gonna leave it at that. We've been going on for a while. I know we started off on, we started off giving y'all a lot of information I feel like is very valuable. We have to use any platform we have to speak out about this.
Yeah.
I don't really use my Instagram as much, so like
I realized I was using my personal page more, but I think I'm gonna use the podcast page because I feel like we have more followers there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was gonna say, like, this recording this episode reminded me of like our earlier ones. You know, when we would like go on these long tangents and like we were sort of unhinged back then.
This is what happens when you have 3 weeks with no it's all starts building up.
All of our thoughts. I'm just like itching to like release, and now we've, you know, this felt very nostalgic. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode, or at least enjoyed the listen. We felt like it was pretty insightful. And you know what? Like, carry on the conversation with us. You know, we love hearing from you guys, or I love hearing from you guys.
I'm going to continue. Okay, we're going to make that a segment. We'll talk about that.
Okay. That being said, carry on the conversation in the comments. DM us. Do what you got to do. We see all the comments, and we appreciate you guys giving us feedback or sharing your thoughts even. It's very important to us to hear from you, since you guys are the ones that are watching us. So thank you guys again for listening.
And we'll see y'all next week. Bye.